Welcome to the Primitive Republic podcast, where we talk about the most primitive aspects of man to live off the land, hunt, and sustain oneself. At the core of our humanity, there are things that drive us. A sense to turn back the clock, to get away from modern life, and search for something primitive. Every week we talk to like-minded individuals that are looking to connect and create a community of people, a republic. Now your host, Aaron Schmaus. Welcome to the Primitive Republic podcast. I'm with call legend Rockie Jacobsen. He's the founder of Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. For any of you that has been hiding under a rock for the last, 60 years? No, not quite that long. It's been
30 years since I started the company.
I was going to say, I know it's been over 20 because I used to use your calls when I was like 12. So, with Rocky. And he always gets asked, questions about his calls and stuff like that, and we can get into that a little bit. But my main thing is, I want to talk about real issues and real things having to do with the outdoors and hunting, maybe some different legislation or things that in his mind, he's been around the industry for quite a while, so in his mind what he would suggest we do differently. So Rocky, thanks for being on.
You bet. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
So we've got quite a mess on our hands in a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways it's better than it used to be, and a lot of ways it really makes me question what people are thinking.
Well, my first thought is we're out there in the industry to promote hunting and get people involved in it more, and it's a good thing. It's good for kids to get out there and understand the outdoors. And at the same time, there's so many people out there hunting now, we can't find a place to hunt anymore.
Yeah.
And so where is the fine line going to come to where we promote hunting and yet we have quality hunting time too? That's really probably one of the biggest aspects that I look at right now is quality hunting, and we can't find it.
Right.
So,
there's a lot of different things that could possibly change that. Increase tag prices, but at the same time you want it to be affordable, so that other people can enjoy it too from, other states. And like Montana, where I'm from, they had gotten rid of the devoted tags for outfitters, which in a lot of ways kept, not a bunch of non-resident hunters out of a lot of the public lands because they were with a guide, and if a guide was hunting on public land, he has to specifically say where he's going to be. So it kind of helps parse the people out a little bit, and not to mention guides a lot of times hunt on private land as well. Mm-hmm. So they'll have big section leases and stuff like that, and so I think to your point that probably hurt things too in a lot of ways, but it made it easier for DIY guys.
Yeah. There's just a lot of us in the industry that are teaching people how to hunt properly and teaching them how to call and giving them the confidence that they can go out and do it themselves and understand how to quarter an elk and gut it and pack it and get it out of the mountains. And you're just seeing more and more people taking that chance and going out and hunting, and meanwhile we're also ruining the grounds that we used to hunt because there's so many people there now that it's hard to find a kind of little private spot. And when it comes to elk hunting can't stand pressure. The elk just can't handle it. So you get too many people in there. It's not that they quit bugling, but they move out. Mm-hmm. You find them one day and they're bugling, the next day you go back in the canyon. Most people go, well, they're bugle-wise, they shut up. But they're probably not there. Is what's going on. Granted, they will shut up a little bit from humans talking to them and predators getting after them, especially wolves, but it's just that there's a lot of combinations going on between predators, humans, and one of the biggest factors that I see in the elk hunting world is we're losing our bull to cow ratio. Anytime you drop underneath that 25 bulls per 100, they're not going to bugle much. There's nothing to fight over. There's nothing there to challenge each other. They can establish the dominant bull so quickly, and the rest of the guys just got to stand out there and hope that they become old enough someday.
Well, and that's a really fair point too, and it seems like it's really strong in some areas and really weak in another as far as, bull to cow ratio. Like, where one of the areas that I used to hunt is a spike only area, and I mean, you see monster bulls in there, and you see a bunch of them. Of course, anything with a tine, you're not allowed to shoot.
Right.
And the draw odds for that, I think, are like 0.01%.
Wow.
Something like, it's really, really low. And I've always wondered why they do that, because you can go in there and you see tons of elk.
Yeah. Well, what happens sometimes in those units, they are creating a habitat for them to be able to breed and do their duty to get things done right. Mother Nature makes sure the proper bulls are the ones that do the breeding for them. But you got to realize too that if this is open ground to where they can move around, go anywhere they want, eventually those bulls will disperse and head into other units because it's overcrowded with too many bulls. And some of those bulls can't win, but they still feel they can. So they're going to venture off somewhere else to find cows. And this is creating a habitat to create more bulls, bigger bulls, and they will disperse. So it's a good deal, to have spikes only in certain places, but you can't have it everywhere.
Yeah, well, where I'm talking about, it's basically a long mountain range, and that is basically the unit, and it's just that mountain range, and you've got long valleys in between, which of course, up north we have towns pretty much in the valleys, trying to get away from the snow and everything. So it almost creates a barrier where the elk can't travel in between there, or won't travel in between there, and then they kind of stay locked in that area. And it's a long mountain range,
Okay.
So, but it I don't know, it was kind of frustrating. You go in there and you see spikes and stuff like that, but it's not. You see a vast number of big bulls and a lot of injured bulls because
they're fighting with each other. Yeah. But I've been to a lot of different states where the bull to cow ratio is running 40, 45 bulls per 100, and they bugle a lot. And even when you bump them, they just run around mountainside and they just keep right on bugling. But you drop into some of the country like in Idaho where public land is available everywhere, the bull to cow ratio probably, there's some units that might be pushing 25, but the biggest share of them on the average are 10 bulls per 100. And they don't bugle very much. They just don't.
What do you think the reason is for that?
Well, it's hunting pressure. They got a rifle season on some of those units 30 days and archery season 30 days. One of the other biggest problems we have is wolves. Wolves will pick on those big bulls, especially after the rut. Mm-hmm. They get tired, wore out. Yeah. And they go up in those mountains and those thickets and they just lay down. They just don't get up and move for quite a while. And those wolves know it. And they'll kill those big bulls off before they will a cow. Everybody, especially your environmentalists, claim that wolves kill the weak and the sick, and they do, because that's the easiest prey for them to start with.
Well, and those bulls, they get beat up during the rut.
And that's part of being sick.
Yeah.
So you're losing that bull. It doesn't mean he's going to die from being sick. He's just wore out.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that. They can tell that those animals are weak, and that's the ones they're going to pick on. And that's one reason we lose a lot of big bulls, because of the wolves. And cougars are the same way, mountain lions.
Yeah.
If a mountain lion could run like a wolf, we wouldn't have any animals left.
Oh, yeah.
They're a killing machine.
Yeah, they are.
Like the state of Oregon haven't had hound hunting for several years, since 1994, I believe. And the cougar population and the bear population is so overcrowded that they're starting to lose their animals. The first ones to go are the bigger ones.
Yeah, and I just heard actually here at the Hunt Expo that Washington is, and I've got to look into this, but I had heard that Washington is starting a trial for hound hunting, because that was another place that they didn't allow hounds, which I don't understand the point behind a trial. I mean, what do you think? It's not going to work, or it'll work?
Well, yeah, I think what the trial means is let's get it started gradually to break it into the environmentalists so they get used to it and they can't come at us full blown to shut us down. Let's just say, let's just go out with one hound hunter and take one cougar this month.
Yeah.
And they might let that slip by, where if you open up the season for everybody, they're going to say, no way, we don't want that many people out there killing all the cougars off.
Yeah.
So that's their trial bases they're talking about.
And they've got a bunch of them too.
Oh, my goodness. In Idaho, we have had cougar season hound hunting for as long as I can remember, and there's just as many cougars and bears there that there ever been, and there's lots of them.
Yeah, we have a bunch of them too, and it's something that I've noticed in my area. I live in the Bitterroot Valley area of Montana, just south of Missoula, and we've got wolves and stuff, in the Bitterroot Range and stuff, and actually on the other side in the Sapphire Range. And it seems like, and I've talked to a few biologists, and they've said that the wolves will pick on those cats, and it'll end up pushing those cats down. And the wolves don't want to come into the town areas and stuff, so it'll push those cats down. And we're noticing a lot of cats in and around the fringes of city limits and stuff like that. And I came home 2 weeks ago to cat tracks on my about 12 feet from my front door.
Mountain lions love those little foo-foo dogs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, easy pickings.
They'll sit right there on that yard, there under the yard light, and wait till the owners let their little dog go out potty on the lawn. Poof, gone. And cougars can wander around the neighborhood pretty secretively.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's easy to walk past a cat.
Yeah, I drove down town one time I believe it was Bend, Oregon, when I was going on to a show, and I was going downtown and going through the area, and there was a big old tomcat sitting right in this guy's driveway.
Oh,
You
wow.
could just, right there, just sitting around watching the traffic go by, and I knew what he was doing. He was just waiting for the owner to let their dog out.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And so the other thing, too, is like in my area, I hate to use this old cliche, but, we've got a bunch of Californians in that valley right there, and a lot of them, most of them seem like they've escaped from California and
Right.
a lot of the things that are going on there. But, you do get those ones that tend to vote exactly the same way that what they left from.
Yeah, they left because they didn't like the laws, but they brought the laws with them.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really weird. It's bizarre. Yeah. And so they don't let anybody hunt, in those areas, and it's nothing for me to have a deer, 20 yards away and just stand there and look at me.
Right.
Right there in my yard, and it's like, I've only got so many tags, otherwise I'd be taking them out in my own yard. But it's and that's another thing too with the cats being driven down. There's plenty of food, so why would they go anywhere else?
I run dogs for almost 25 years, so I got a good idea what you can do with dogs and what happens with cats and bears. But the first time I went hound hunting, I hunted with a guy that had hunted a lot, and we kept going back to the same drainage, and there's a bridge there, and every day we'd cut a crap track on that bridge, and he'd catch a cat almost every day, and we'd sometimes take them. And I said, man, one of these days you're going to run out of cats because you're killing them all. And he goes, ain't no way. All that country in the back country is promoting and producing more cougars. He said, and this is a main crossing. And he said, they'll just keep coming. He said, I've hunted this spot 20 years, and there's just as many cougars here as there was then. Yeah. He said, there's so much remote country to produce more cougars. And they are an animal that has to have their own territory. And so once they get to a certain age and kicked out from their mother, they're going to disperse. And this is what they do here. They come off those mountain ranges and cross here looking for another female, looking for more food. He said there's so much remote country, it'll never run out of cougars.
Yeah, I had heard about a cat that was tracked. It was over, I believe, in Vancouver, and it made its way over down into Montana, into Colorado, back up, and then went all the way over into Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and they got it in Pennsylvania. You know, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, that's...
They travel.
Yeah, oh,
they
yeah.
They really do.
And, you know, a lot of the predator species do,
Yeah.
like the grizz and all that kind of stuff.
They do, and they move where the food is.
Yeah.
And if you have wolves come in and take away the food from cougars and bears and whatever, they're going to move someplace else where they can find food and get away from the wolves.
Yeah.
And they don't care how far they go.
Yep, that's right. It's pretty interesting. But so what do you think are some things that maybe we need to be portraying differently?
As hunters?
Yeah, as hunters, especially those, you know, that are videoing and, you know, doing podcasts and out there talking and promoting hunting and stuff.
Yeah, that's a very touchy subject sometimes, you know, and I see a lot of people making videos and producing good shows and stuff, but why are they doing it? Are they doing it to show off that they're good hunters, or they're trying to become famous, or are they actually doing it for the ethical part or helping conservation? It's hard to say. I see some shows that I can tell that they're doing it because they want to be famous. And then there's some shows that they do it because they want to push their product on there and sell it. It'd be nice if we could promote hunting to teach people to hunt properly and how to hunt correctly every species, and learn the ethics, you know. I'm just going to give you an example of ethics. I'm driving down the road to go hunting in the morning, and I know a trailhead that I want to go to. I pull up there, and there's one vehicle there already. I'm not going to stop and go up that trailhead. I'm going to let that guy have that. He found it first. That's his area. And I'm going to go somewhere else. It may not be as good, but I am going to go somewhere else. And those those are kind of the ethics that I'm talking about. They're little ethics, but they mean a lot to the hunter that's out there. Some of those drainages, they go, oh, that's big enough for 5 or 6 people in here. You're not going to hurt me in here. But when you're dealing with certain animals like elk, it takes a lot of area to hunt an elk properly.
Oh, especially during bow season when you're bugling and all that kind of stuff. And you're
now,
right.
if it's a trailhead that you go out a ways and it disperses into some other canyons left and right, straight forward or whatever, and there's only one rig there, you can probably figure out which drainage he went into, and you can go left. But most of your trailheads go into one drainage, the biggest share of them. So I always give that person respect, but I have pulled up and had it all to myself, and I get up in there and can't believe how many people are bugling behind me. You know, like they pulled in and parked there, and nobody gets an elk. There's just too much activity going on. You can't work the elk the way they're supposed to be done to get them to come in, and most of the time you end up bugling each other in.
Yeah. So I was talking to Josh about this the other day. Something that I've never seen on a show, and it's something that I do, not to toot my own horn, but it's just, I guess, maybe how I was raised or whatever, or maybe the way I think. But, you know, I've made bad hits on animals. And so I remember a few years ago, I shot a bull, and before I released, he jumped forward, and, you know, I just hit him far back. And so he had jumped the fence and gone over into private, and in Montana, that landowner doesn't have to let you go on. And so while I was dealing with trying to get a hold of the landowner, and, you know, I talked to the Fish and Game and showed him, you know, where I'd shot it and all that kind of stuff. But before I even did all that, the first thing I did was notch my tag. Just because for me, it's I killed that animal.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or mortally wounded that animal.
Right.
You know, so.
And, you know, that's commendable and on the other hand, you got to look at it too as if I need the meat to feed my family, that's more important. So, you may look at it as, well, I can't recover that animal. I need the meat. So it's okay then to let it go and not tag it too. But in your own heart, if you don't feel it's good, that's a good thing to do. And I've seen people do it both ways. I would say this day and age, we really don't need the meat.
Yeah.
You can go to the grocery store and buy a beef way cheaper than you can buy an elk. It depends on where you hunt. Like if I live in an area which I do, I can walk out my back door and shoot an elk. So it's cheaper to do that. But if I travel to Arizona and New Mexico to kill an elk, you're not really doing it for the meat. It's more for the fun and the sport of going hunting and having that enjoyment of doing it. And yes, when we do kill an animal, we do take care of it and we do use the meat. But if you really thought about it, it would be cheaper to go buy a beef or a pig.
Oh, yeah.
By far. But then, if you do that kind of stuff, we're not controlling the animals and have the conservation part of it, because animals have to be hunted to have the numbers intact.
Right. And see, that's where, I kind of lie with it or lay with it, rather, is, looking at it from the conservational aspect, there's so many tags, right? And they pretty well project, well, I don't know if it's pretty well, but they project, about statistically how many animals are going to be culled from hunting. And so for me, if, let's say, that animal, I wasn't able to recover him, I took out a bull from the herd, and so if I go and take another one, that skews things a little bit, like you had said.
Right.
So from the if I'm looking at it personally as a conservationist, then that's where it lies, and it's my responsibility to make sure that I make a good clean hit and stuff like that, and I do utilize the meat. I've told other people this too. Even the offcuts and the bloodshot and stuff like that, I grind all that up, the tendon and stuff like that. I grind it up and I feed it to my dog. So I try and utilize as much as I possibly can. But just to me, ethically, if we're looking at it from a conservational standpoint, it's just
and I went to Arizona with a friend of mine. We both drew the Arizona tags, and I called in a really, really big bull for him, and he shot it, and I mean on video, and it looks like it was an absolutely perfect shot. The arrow went in far enough to where all you seen was part of the fletching sticking out, and we never found that bull. And we don't know what happened. And down in that country, you can cover the ground and see forever. And the only thing we can possibly think of is it made it to a edge of a road somewhere and somebody drove by, because by the time we got to the road, it was 4 to 5 hours later. So somebody could have drove by and grabbed that elk and loaded it up and gone. And we couldn't find any evidence of that. But what I'm getting at is he took and notched each tag. He was done. He said, I killed my bull. And that's hard to do.
It is. It's
very
really
hard
to do. Yeah.
But you got to commend somebody on that. And nobody ever likes to make a bad shot.
No. It's a gut-wrenching feeling.
And as long as you've done everything in your power, you practiced, you understand the angles of your shots, and you've done all your homework, and this happens, that's the best you can do. But there is people out there that pick up their bow the day before season and never shot it all year round and go hunting. That's totally wrong. And so if you did wound an animal, then you are at fault.
Yeah.
For doing that. But if you do everything to the books like you're supposed to and it happens, you've got a kind of like a good excuse, because you did what you could do. And
right.
You can't outguess an animal what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why you don't take long shots.
Yep.
Because you don't know if that animal's going to turn and face you at the same time you pull the trigger, and they can move just 2 inches, and it changes the complete angle of an animal. And
and if you if you just if you hit bone, you have no idea where that bullet is going or that arrow is going. And
so that's a call shot that you got to take, but that's the idea that I have for bugling elk in. Get those things in as close as you can get them. They'll come right up to you 5 yards if you let them, and that's a better chance of killing one doing that.
I think it's more fun doing that too.
It is. That's the idea.
Yeah.
The only time I take a long shot is if I shot him and he's still alive and I need another arrow in him for a blood trail. I'll take a long shot and hope I can get it because he's going to die anyway.
Yeah.
So I shot an elk this year at 8 yards. And I could have shot him at 25. He was standing broadside at 25, but I knew what he was planning on doing. I said, why not? Let him come.
Yeah.
And he come up to 8 yards, and I shot him. So, 25 yards was a duck.
Yeah, it's a chip shot.
I was like, I could have, but it was fun
to
know that I could get that bull right to my face.
Yeah.
And it's more fun. It's thrilling.
Yeah. That's just one of the things that I think maybe we as people who are trying to spread the word of hunting and stuff like that, I've never seen anybody do it on TV or in shows and stuff.
Usually
like that.
They don't show anything but kills because that's what most people want to see. Biggest share of the time.
Well, and so I think a lot of people too have this misconception. You know how hard it is to hunt out west.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes pretty dang brutal, and I think a lot of people get these unreal expectations because all they see is the kill
easy
shot.
part.
Yeah. And if I had to envision a show, it's going to be something that it really shows the grinding part of it, and the rough stuff, and then if you're successful, then you're in notching a tag, then you're successful in notching a tag. And if not, and maybe to keep people interested, you do a giveaway or something like that on that not on that day that you weren't able to kill something or something, to keep people interested.
Yeah.
But I would like to show people the real aspect of what it's like.
What they're really going to expect, because TV shows make it look so easy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not.
Yeah.
I was on a TV show for a few years, and how many times we went out and never got an elk to bugle, and how many times we screwed it up and never got it on video. And I can remember one time I had the camera guy behind me, and I was doing the call, and a friend of mine was doing the shooting, and this monster bull come in, and he shoots him, and he kills him. And got ready to look at the footage, and the camera guy goes, I forgot to put it on record.
Oh, no.
We never got it on record, so we couldn't show it on TV. We didn't have nothing.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful setup. So, that's one of those things that happen.
Yeah.
And we didn't have anything to even tell people, even if we didn't get him.
Yeah.
So it can be frustrating that time. And it was kind of funny, too. The cameraman took that camera and threw it about 30 feet over the hill.
Oh,
he was that mad.
Upset. Yeah.
Just heaved it.
Yeah. I was trying to video these elk one time, and there was a bunch of cows that were just up over this knob, and it was pretty close to a foot, maybe a little bit more of snow. And I come up with my camera phone, and I'm trying to video, and I wasn't paying attention to where my feet were, and all of a sudden I like fall down. So all you see in the video is you see the cows, and then all you see is everything going like this. And it's that kind of stuff I think needs to be shown, what real life is like.
Yeah, true. I think it's more interesting to me when I watch a hunting show, and I don't watch a lot of them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I used to, but when I do watch them, I want to see the scenery. I want to see the animals moving through. I don't care about the kill.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that so many times, and it doesn't mean that much to me. But getting to that point where that animal could have been killed is more interesting to me than anything. And understanding the behavior of what that animal is doing and how you got involved with him, going to him. And But the scenery to me is more neat than anything.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I think by not showing by having unreal expectations, it's really dangerous, especially in, our area of the country. I almost would say that's probably why there's so many grizzly attacks, because and almost every single one is a out-of-stater who doesn't have to deal with those problems,
Yeah, don't understand what to look for.
Well, shoot, what was it this year? 4 attacks. Right there in
southwestern Montana, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the Gravellies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've hunted in that area several times.
Yeah,
and it's thick with bears.
Oh, yeah.
But if you don't know how to deal with them, and nobody shows you that kind of stuff,
right?
Yeah. If you don't know how to deal with them, it is dang dangerous. Even if you do know how to deal with them, it's still dangerous.
Yeah, and the cow calling is what they hear a lot of when we're out there, and they key in on that right away, and they know, especially if you did a young calf sound, that's what they're after. It's a calling card for them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You just got to be aware of it, the situation, and constantly be watching around you that a grizzly could walk up in on you. Even if you see a grizzly at 100 yards away, you better be getting out of there.
Yeah, you're still in trouble.
You bet. You're in trouble because, if they decide to take you, they're on top of you in 100 yards before you can blink your eyes.
Yeah, so Todd Orr, I grew up, and he actually went to school with some of my family members. He was attacked a while back, and that mother grizz was 70 yards away and was just on him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and he got attacked twice.
Wow.
And so he got attacked the first time, and of course he played dead and all that kind of stuff. And she leaves him alone and goes off. Well, he starts running down the trailhead, or down to where his truck was, and she comes out of the woods and gets him again.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, how unlucky could you get? You know?
Man, yeah, she was upset, wasn't she?
You got an angel on your shoulder to live through it twice. But
one thing I could suggest to people that are hunting in grizzly country is, when you do kill an animal, especially like an elk, go ahead and spend the time and get him quartered up, and then pack those quarters down the hill 300-400 yards, get them away from the gut pile.
Oh yeah.
They'll find that gut pile way before they'll find those quarters. And then when you go back in the next day to pack, you're away from those gut piles. A grizzly could be on those guts, and you got your meat somewhere else. Don't hang the meat next to the guts when you're getting ready to pack. Even if it's in the dark, get it away from them.
Yeah.
And that gives you a better chance to not be right in the grizzly's face where they defend the meat they got.
Well, and it's really, I mean, it's an eerie feeling when especially if you're by yourself and, dressing an animal and all that kind of stuff, and it's starting to get dark, and it's
we hunted caribou in Alaska one time, and we'd shot 3 caribou in the same day. We packed and quartered 2 of them out. The third one we just gutted and propped it open because we didn't have time. Planned on going back the next morning and pack the third one out, and we were didn't even have time to even quarter it. We just gutted it and opened it up and spread it out. It was cold enough. Went back the next morning. There's no caribou. There ain't a caribou in the country left. He isn't laying there no more.
Yeah.
You can see the drag marks. And this grizzly picked that full-grown caribou and drug it almost a mile to the closest brush pile.
Holy cow.
I mean, it was downhill, but he still drug it.
Yeah, but still.
And we got to the brush pile. All we had was our bows, no guns. And we looked in there, and you could see the caribou. And the only thing the bear did was strip the velvet off the horns. He hadn't ate any of the meat yet, and we thought, well, we can get in there and get that out of there. So we started into the brush patch. I got a hold of one hind quarter, and the other guy got a hold of it, and we started dragging. I mean, you couldn't hardly move that thing 5 feet without grunting and groaning. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, you hear the coming, and the brush is parting. You want to see a couple guys scatter like a quail. I mean, it was hairy. And we got back up on the hill about 50, 60 yards, and
It's
that
his.
bear was walking around that caribou, popping his teeth, and then he goes, "I want my caribou." I said, "He can have him. I'm not going in there."
If you want to go fight him for it, if you think you can win.
Yeah, that was a little hairy. So
Yeah.
we fed us a grizzly.
Yeah.
Let him have
He'd
it.
probably thank you for it too.
Yeah, it was crazy.
But so what else do you think maybe we need to change? We were talking about before the podcast about different permits and stuff
Yeah,
like
you know,
that
most
too.
people don't realize that you have to have a permit on national forest, BLM, state ground. BLM state don't really enforce it that much.
Well, and wilderness
And
too.
in wilderness, you're not supposed to film at all as far as commercial use.
Yeah.
You can do it for your own use as long as you're not making money. But anytime you're on Forest Service ground and you're making a movie and film and you're making any type of compensation off it, you got to have a special use permit. And every Forest Service has different districts, and every district has different people that sit down with you and charge you for what you're going to do. You got to tell them how many days you're going to be out there, how many hours, how many people, and that adjusts what they charge you. And so you get one for 10 days of permit, and you go out there and it rains every blasted day, and you can't film a thing. You've just wasted $1,500, and it happens a lot. And so I've always thought, and we've tried this a couple of times and get it put into legislature and get this law changed to where you go and get a permit, and I don't care what you pay for it. $2,500 would be good, but even $5,000 for a permit for a full year. And that allows you to hunt anywhere on Forest Service in the United States for that year as long as you get a permit. The Forest Service would make way more money off that than they do right now, because there's a lot of people out there that do it that don't pay nobody nothing, and they're getting away with it.
Yeah.
But even if you accept an elk call as far as promotion, when you're videoing, that's compensation. And a lot of these videos are on YouTube and stuff. They're saying, well, we're doing it for free. Yeah, but you're getting compensated somewhere from people giving you a free bow, something like that, to advertise for them. So I'm just saying, people be careful, because there is people watching. They have undercovers watching every video on there, and if they can pick that thing apart to arrest you, they're going to do it.
Well, and there are most definitely people that have been caught.
Oh yeah, big time
doing that kind of stuff. I can't remember the name of it. I think it was maybe Montana Wild, something like that.
Yeah, I've
they
heard of
got
several.
a while back. I think they were in the Bob Marshall, and they were catching bull trout, and like I don't know the full specifics, but they were catching bull trout, and they would let it go back out, and then they bring it in. They're holding it out of the water, and then they let it go back out with the same trout and bring it back in, and it's like I don't. I don't understand it. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, that fish probably wouldn't live.
Yeah, and a bull trout's a native
yes
species.
And they're protected.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to remove them from the water or anything like that. So yeah, but that's the kind of ethics that we need to realize in our industry, that there's small little things like that do mean a lot in the long run.
Yeah.
The filming with permits is very important that we have them when we're out filming, but there's got to be a better way, because when they set this permits up to film, it was set up for the Hollywood people. They come out on Forest Service ground and they build railroad tracks and they build out west buildings and stuff. They got to be charged for that kind of stuff. And so they have never changed those rulings, and so we're underneath the guidelines of Hollywood. And it shouldn't be that way for the hunting industry, because all we're packing is a little camera.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be charged that kind of money for just packing a camera around.
Well, you're not changing anything.
No.
No.
And nobody's against not paying for it. We're all against the timeline and how it's presented and what we're restricted on what we're doing. That's what we're against. It needs to be a little more open to where we can go and do things that we need to get done. Because when you're hunting elk, it may take all 30 days to get an elk on video.
Yeah.
And nobody can justify spending $150 a day for 30 days to get a film for one elk. You don't get that money recuperated back.
Yeah.
They just need to figure out some way to change that, and maybe we can get Donald Trump's son to come hunting with us, and then his son can go to Donald, and maybe we can get this changed.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Something interesting that I had heard, and I've got to look it up, but apparently there's a bill that is going to defund Fish, Wildlife, and Parks by like $255 million or something like that.
Wow.
And, I want to say that I had read that. And there was like $155 million with another, organization, and then I want to say it was like $15 million from the EPA, and it's an interesting bill, as it relates to the outdoors and hunting and wildlife management stuff,
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. My big thing is getting the rules, so to speak, or the guidelines for that we all kind of don't really talk about that much as hunters, like the ethics. Get them out there so that
and so many laws and rules. It doesn't matter if it's in hunting or there's too many gray lines.
Oh yeah, there is.
They're set up that way on purpose. So if they want to catch somebody, they have that opportunity to adjust that gray line to lean their way. The law should be written in black and white. You either do it or you don't. None of this stuff in between, and it could be done. They just don't do it.
Yeah.
And in a court of law, the reason there's gray lines is so they can kind of push that boundary to arrest you.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about.
That boundary to arrest you and then fine you.
Yes.
Yeah,
there's just so many things out there that are like that, and I mean, I could go on and on about some of that stuff, but I don't want to put my foot in my mouth.
Yeah. I wrote a book, 10 Rules for Finding a Good Hunting Partner, and I talk about in the book, a little bit about ethics. Like you had said, if I go with you, if you take me to your spot, I will never hunt that spot without your permission. And it's all public land, but to me, you found that spot, and you're expecting to be going back in there regardless of whether somebody else stumbles across it or whatever. It's just, to me, it's like an unwritten rule.
It is, And I run into that quite a bit. And if I run into somebody that's in my little honey hole and he found it on his own, fine. I don't have a problem with that. But it's really bad when you've taken a friend in there and all of a sudden they got a camp with two of their friends and you walk in there and go, hey, what's the deal? I like to hunt here.
Yeah.
And now none of us can hunt because it's overcrowded and,
right.
They have the rights to be there, but it's ethically wise, you don't do those things.
Yeah. And I've gotten in some knockdown, drag-out arguments with some people. I've taken them to a place and I thought they were good friends and had my back and all that kind of stuff. And then you go back in there and, there they are with a couple of their friends. And, it's like, go find your own spot. Well, there's animals here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's animals other places too. Why do you got to, come to the place that I showed you?
Here's another pet peeve of mine is people don't understand that elk can't handle human pressure, human scent. And you'll take people that set up a camp right where the elk like to live.
Yeah.
And they say, well, it makes it easier for us to get to them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the elk are leaving the country. And I was like,
yeah,
man, learn to camp somewhere else where the elk aren't at.
Yeah.
And you come in and you hunt them and get in and get out. Don't set your tent right up in the middle of the best hunting area there is and expect an animal to stay there because they're not going to stay there.
Well, that comes down to laziness, I think.
It does. It is, yeah.
Like, it's brutal sometimes because, the elk are going up in the morning and down in the evening. And, so you're like, okay, well, I've got to be somewhere that's away from that path. Well, usually that means that you're going to have to walk your butt up that hill early morning. You don't want to camp up top because the thermals are bringing it bringing your scent right down, and you're going to blow them out.
Yeah.
You know, but there's so many. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a camp at the top of a mountain. You know, because they're like, well, that makes it easy. Just like you said.
Get out of the
know?
tent and sit there in glass all day. You know.
Yeah.
Don't have to go anywhere. They're there.
That drives me nuts
yeah,
too.
Yeah.
You know?
I've never understood why people think that, and you just gotta make sure those animals have room.
Or call.
Yeah.
And they're walking with the wind. You know.
Yeah.
I had that happen just this last season during bow season. I'm calling, and I could clearly tell it was a hunter. You know, sounded like he was playing some sort of a flute, or you know, I don't know what it was, but it definitely was not a very good bugle. And he's coming down with the wind. Like I had a bull that was coming my direction.
Yes,
and then
coming right behind it.
Yeah, and then he comes right. I could hear him as he was bugling and stuff, and the guy, and then he comes down in the bottom of the draw, and then starts coming down towards me, and I was like, "This bull is coming right towards me."
Yeah.
You know, and then of course the bull went silent and
gone.
Yep, he's gone.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. They just don't take the time and check the wind and don't understand it. And
yeah. They start walking downhill during, you know. And
I've left good bulls screaming that I could have called in if the winds would have been right. I've backed clear out of there and said, I'll come back another day.
Yeah, you blow them out, they'll go for miles.
25 miles is nothing for an elk.
Yeah,
They're
and they
there.
Cover it quick.
Yeah, and for us, it's forever to get there.
Yeah, it's amazing how quick they can go.
Yeah, it is.
But anyway, you have anything else that you can think of?
Well, you know, we're always debating on this wolf thing. The wolves are, you know, a pretty bad deal, and they're trying to get them started in Colorado, but everybody needs to know they're already in Colorado. They already planted them.
Yeah.
They put them there, and now they're bringing them to the public's attention about, let's present this to the public and see how they accept it. They're already there. They've planted them.
Yeah.
And that's just the way they do things because of the law. They're required to have that program presented to the public to make it legal.
Yeah.
But they've already went through the work and already done it. So you guys in Colorado have wolves.
Yeah.
And they are going to decimate your herds.
Yeah, I have friends that have videos of them. I mean, look at Idaho. I mean,
Yes.
the wolves they're very smart, and they're very hard to hunt.
Tremendously hard to hunt because they're totally nocturnal, for one thing. I mean, not all the time nocturnal, but that's when they do most of their hunting. And to get one to come to you, they are going to circle that sound, whether it's a wolf sound or a human sound, a predator sound. They will circle that 600 yards out until they catch your wind, and they just leave. They're smart. They're not going to just come flying in like an elk does, get there, and then get the wind in their favor.
Yeah, and that makes it incredibly hard to manage.
Yeah.
You know, so now it's to the point where they're going to, they already have, 15 tags if you're out hunting and 15 trapping.
In Idaho,
tags,
they've raised it to 15 and 15 like that, and still that's not going to be enough. You could open up your wolf season year-round, kill as many as you want, and there's going to be just as many wolves there as there ever was.
Yeah.
You cannot get rid of them. And that's what happened in the old days. The only way you can get rid of them is poison them. Meanwhile, you're going to poison your bobcats, your eagles, your ravens, and everything else. So that's a bad thing, and it's not good. But, you know, we got to keep those animals at bay somehow.
Yeah. Keep
them toned down a little bit. And one of the biggest examples I'm going to show you is in Idaho, Unit 10 and 12, which is the Lochsaw, Selway, Bitterroot country.
Yep,
in the North Fork of the Clearwater. We had 17,000 elk in those two units, and some of the best hunting in the world, the biggest bulls, the most outfitted hunts ever, some of the most pristine, beautiful country to outfit in and pack back into.
That's gorgeous.
And we are down to 700 elk left, all because of wolves.
Wow.
They keep blaming it on the habitat, and yes, the habitat has grown up a little bit, and some of the underbrush isn't edible anymore, but you can make that stuff work for the animals. You know, we can go out there and prescribe burns and make that stuff happen. But when you got wolves there, you plant animals back in, they're going to kill them off again anyway. So
Yeah, they actually did that, a controlled burn, not last year, year before, and they didn't notify anybody. I was back in there. We've been back in there for 16 hours, and all of a sudden, and it was smoky anyway because it was a bad fire year.
right.
So we didn't think anything about the smoke, that was just kind of lingering around. And next thing you know, like, you start seeing the flames come up over a mountain over on this side, and then you start seeing them coming up over the mountain on this side, and then up in front of us. And it's like, man, why don't you notify somebody that you're doing that? Because, so we ended up having to come out of there. But
what happens then? You take an area like that you had that many hunters hunting Unit 10 and 12. I don't know exact numbers, but I bet you it was close to 3,000 hunters that hunted archery and rifle in Unit 10 and 12. Where are they going to go?
Yep.
And the only units they got that have elk, you go southeast.
Mm-hmm.
So that puts a lot of hunting pressure on the elk, and people are running into each other. Then you get the people like the Wilkes brothers out of Texas. They come in and buy all the Boise Cascade, the Potlatch ground, the private timber companies. They lock that down to where there used to be 7,000 hunters hunting. Now all those hunters concentrate on Forest Service ground where they can hunt. There's people stacked on top of people. This is the hard part. All those elk that are on Forest Service ground with all those humans there move over onto the private ground and don't come back out. So we have nothing to hunt.
Well, and so I've actually seen this in some areas in Montana, and I'm not going to mention any names just because I don't want to get sued mainly.
Yeah.
But I've literally seen people hazing elk onto their property with helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, they don't care if they get the fine.
Right.
So it's like, why don't we make those fines a lot?
Take their helicopter away.
Yeah, no
They
kidding.
get caught doing that.
If you accidentally mess up somehow and the Fish and Game wants to drill you, they take your truck, they take your bow, they take your rifle, whatever. They take everything.
Yeah.
Why not do the same thing?
Right. You get caught hazing,
Yeah.
take your helicopter and don't get it back.
Yeah. Also, a couple of years ago, I used to move cows and work on a ranch and stuff like that in one of the bigger ranch areas where I grew up. And I went back to talk to him and see if I could go and hunt on their place. And he was like, Aaron, I would let you, but last year we let these people go and hunt, and they were chasing elk all through our field with their truck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like...
Yeah, you can't blame the landowner.
Yeah, no, not at all, because, I don't want anybody messing up my stuff, and they were really upset that, these chuckleheads are, chasing elk and hazing them and all that kind of stuff, And, so there's a lot of problems with all that kind of stuff,
Yeah, and what's going to happen eventually here is our hunting world that we know now is going to change to probably drawing only, every state, or have to hunt private ground and have to pay the big money. And I think they'll adjust the tags down to where you're going to have to pay a lot of money to get a tag as a non-resident and a resident, and it's not worth hunting anymore.
Yeah, I hate to say this, because if this is not the case, I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but I'm right there with you. I think that hunting, and I hate to sound really cynical, and it sucks, but I think it's true. I think hunting is pretty well doomed as we see it. Because of how we manage our species, how right now we're allowing, politicians to manage our animals versus, trusted biologists and based on the biological and ecological resources that are available for those animals. Like you take the wolves and well, look at New Jersey, where the governor came in and said, through executive order, there's going to be no black bear hunting on public land.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just something like that is detrimental in other ways. So you start, and it seems like it's like that with predator species, and this is kind of where I'm going with it. If you increase the number of predators and you decrease the number of animals that hunters like to hunt, then, you know, you can fall on the biological side of things and say, well, there's just not enough animals, so it goes to drawing only, or no more hunting in this particular area. And then, you know, long term, oh, well, you know, you got those people that say, well, you know, I've got my rifle to feed my family and to hunt with and all that kind of stuff, and the Second Amendment affords me that right. Well, the Second Amendment doesn't have anything to do with hunting. It is all about having a well-regulated militia to protect yourself, your family, your property, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, but those people that have that argument and say, well, I have this rifle for hunting, you know, that's just one way to take out the leg.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, you don't need that anymore. And then you've got the argument, well, you know, we've got a great military and a great system, and, you know, it'll never happen to us where we need a militia or, you know, anything like that, you know. So dominoes start to topple, you know, just that's how important hunting is, and I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah, it becomes a way of life, you know, and you take away a person's way of life, you've destroyed that person, you know, morally. And it's kind of like you can't take, if somebody likes going to a theater and watching opera, tell them they can't do that anymore. That's their way of life. They live that forever. It's like people in Hollywood, they're movie stars. You take that away from them, they're not movie stars anymore. They fall apart.
Yeah,
it's like a way of life.
It's like your purpose, you know.
It's your purpose in life, and that's what you do. And you take stuff away from people, and you just morally and spiritually fall apart. Yeah. You just do.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I know several people that use that meat to feed their families.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And it's just, and some animals are a lot easier to hunt than others.
Yes.
You know, like for me, I think deer are a lot easier to hunt.
Oh, yeah, by far. You know, especially a mule deer with a rifle.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they're much simpler than an elk.
Yeah. Yeah, or antelope or, you know, something like that. And, you know, so people use that meat and people rely on that meat. And,
not only that, the wild game meat is so much more healthier for you.
Absolutely.
You know, you buy beef and pigs, they got so many hormone shots in them. That's something that just brought something up to me, too, that I don't think people realize it. You ever think about it? You got cattle that are grazing, open range grazing. How come the wolves don't pick on them very much? You know, they do occasionally, but not very often do wild beef that are out in open range get caught and killed by a wolf.
Well, if you look at it statistically, we're probably going to get a bunch of livestock people that are upset at what we're talking about right now. But, I mean, if you look at it statistically, if you had the same number of elk out there and the same number of cattle.
Why wouldn't a wolf kill a cow? Because it's so easy.
Yeah.
But what I'm thinking, cattle are what do you want to call it?
Slow elk?
No, you know, they have their vaccinations. That's what I'm getting at. They got their vaccinations, the hormones and all this stuff to make them grow before they're turned out in open range. Those doggone wolves can feel and smell that in an animal.
I think it's possible,
And they just stay away from that, because you take a dead elk and you go out there and put poison all over it to kill those wolves from eating it, they won't touch that elk because there's a poison on there that they can smell and detect.
Yeah, historically they used to try and do that.
Yeah, and it's hard to do that with a wolf because they can smell that stuff. So they're smelling that hormone vaccinations and all that into beef. A lot of sheep don't get vaccination. So when you're driving sheep out in the mountains, sheep get attacked a lot by wolves.
I didn't know that. I didn't know they didn't get vaccinations.
Not as often as moo cows because they're growing them for wool, not meat.
Oh, okay.
So there's a difference there. And so sheep get attacked a lot more by wolves because of that. This is my theory. It has nothing to do with actual data.
Yeah.
But I've always wondered that why in the heck aren't moo cows on open range being wiped out by wolves?
Yeah.
And cougars too. Cougars, they don't mess with them.
Yeah, we've had a few that I remember when I was pushing cows and stuff when I was younger that. You'd see them wounded and stuff by a cat.
But most of the time when that happens, it's because the cougar is too old or has been hurt. His teeth are gone. He can't do anything.
Or really young.
Yeah, just learning how to kill. Yeah. You don't see the animals that really know how to kill messing with those.
Yeah.
It's in their nature to pick on animals that are good for them to eat, and easy to kill. And plus, the other theory that I have is your wolves and cougars, they like chasing things that run.
Yeah.
Moo cows, you can't already get them to get out of the way.
Yeah. Sheep will run.
Yeah, sheep will run. But moo cows, I don't care. You throw them rocks at it and hit them, they just stand there and look at you.
Yeah. Well, it's that, what did they say? Like certain animals, with a cat. If you're approached by a cat, you're supposed to stand your ground and make yourself look big. Mm-hmm. But you start running, it invokes that predatory response.
Yeah.
And there's probably some truth in that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
So just something interesting to throw out there.
Yeah. Well, Rocky, we're right at an hour, so and we're still at the expo, so we probably should get some stuff done. And
all right.
But thank you very much, and we'll definitely keep in touch, and I'd love to chat with you again.
All right, Aaron, I appreciate you having me here, and interesting.
Yeah, and thanks for mentoring me as well with the calling and everything like that. That even though I've not gotten any lessons directly from you, just kind of watching and seeing how things go, been a pretty good mentor with that. So
well, thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm going to close with a little bugle for you then.
That'll work.
That'll
yeah.
Work. We'll let her rip. For everybody's going out this fall,
have
a riot hunting elk.
I like it. Thank you, Rocky.
You bet.